I was never gonna be a men's physique.
Didn't have much of an off season.
I like his physique better.
I'm always very energetic. I will have to put me as one of the greatest.
Mr. Olympia was won by the back.
All right, cool. So let's get to the interview, man. It's always good to see you, man. You're always smiling, you know.
Likewise, likewise, especially now.
But you know, I wanted to ask you, how was your experience, you know, getting through this pandemic? I mean, we're still in the pandemic, you know, but like from March and all the way until now, it's been kind of quarantine. Things got shut down. There was a lot of uncertainty. How were you during those times? How were you holding up?
Well, I mean, to me, I just wanted to use my time to be as effective as I possibly could. We got a chance to do a lot of the stuff that we've done with the Train with Kai ebooks. I spent a lot of time writing and working on trying to develop the things that I want to do, I guess, business-wise. I just spent a lot of time focusing on that and, you know, just kind of trying to develop my skill sets. And we still had some traveling to do. I mean, we still, you know, just recently got back from LA not too long ago, you know, working on, you know, film, television, still, you know, finding myself in the grind of trying to be successful with developing this part of, you know, my professional career. No, I think there's a lot of opportunity that was built into some of the idea of what we would call disadvantages. You know, it turns out that people being home, you know, made it that much more likely to be ready to be available to answer phone calls, you know, and maybe even make a meeting or two. I swear, when I went out to LA recently, I probably took more COVID tests than I might have been comfortable with prior to going. If I'd have known that I was going to have to take so many COVID tests, chances are I might not have wanted to go. But I wanted to get this stuff done, so you know, I've done it and continued to do it. But I think we're able to look at some really good things, you know, as a result of it. We've been able to grow the development of our variety show. Behind the scenes, you know, I'm responsible for a lot of writing, everything to do with the concept development. You know, being able to use that as a development platform to showcase a lot of really cool things that exist in the mind of storytelling and in the personality that a lot of the world has not yet gotten a chance to be exposed to. When we're talking about what's going on with Kai Greene. So we just got a chance to really do a lot of cool stuff. I got a chance to start showcasing Chronicles of King Kai. I got a lot further in the development of you know, that graphic novel, the series, and yeah, man, we got a lot to be excited about. We actually did a new shoe launch with Riderwear with the Kai Greene signature series. So there's a lot of things that were still allowed to be done, even while dealing with some of the restrictions of the pandemic.
Right. You know, I want to talk about the variety show and everything else, but first I want to, so obviously, you know, you took this time and made it into something positive, obviously. Now, a lot of people, and even in the fitness industry, right, it seemed like it was a very depressing time for a lot of people for different reasons. It's economic, you know, the gyms being closed for a lot of people, right? I want to see if you have advice for somebody who's going through, let's say, a depression. And also, have you ever been depressed in your life? Have you went through like a tough time where you were mentally, not physically, but mentally were, you know, exhausted? And how did you make it out of that? And can you give advice to somebody who might be going through something right now that's very draining?
Well, to answer the first question, have I ever been depressed? Absolutely. I think every day that I wake up, there are challenges that we are confronted by. What have I done in an effort to overcome some of those sticking points? In other words, to kind of work to either cope with or remedy some of the ideas of dealing with the onset of depression, as I have known it to be a continuing process in my personal life. I think finding purpose doing things that speak directly to your purpose, being clear about what it is that you want to do, makes it that much more likely that you'll be able to find the opportunity that rests in getting up in the morning or having that ability to do it. The truth is, I'm a lot more likely to find myself dealing with the throes of my depression and darker despair when I am less likely to look at the things of opportunity and increase that are present in my life right now. A lot more, now there's things to be realized again when we start to talk about, biochemical, realities and things and how that relates to depression. And I'm certainly not a learned enough authority to even begin to speak on that. But as far as being able to recognize the things that are within my power and the things that I know and can experience every day, one of the ways that I have learned to kind of help myself in the process of dealing with, the onset of depression is being very, very aware of the opportunity that is available to me. I'm less likely to be depressed or to find the idea of my depression to really kick my ass as it can when I'm able to fix my sights on the stuff that, yo, man, this is awesome. I got the cell phone, I can use the cell phone to contact this one and that one and, further develop, my developing enterprise. Hey, I have the ability to paint, I have the ability to draw, I can sit down and write, developing a platform, even like, the variety show, which technically that's what it is. It's a platform to showcase a lot of other things that are important to me, that has become the personality that is known as Kai Greene. But in doing that is a pro-social message that's built into every one of the sketches that we do with Minikai and me moments. And Minikai has now in his own right become a character that is, a part of the repertory company that is Dynamic Muscle Company NYC. Anyway, what am I trying to say in answering that question about the depression stuff? Yo, man, get active. Find the things that are important to you, that mean something to you. And in this case, this is the way that I find remedy for myself. And get active, get involved in being involved. Do not stand on the sidelines and just, because then when I'm doing that and I'm not active, well, then I have time to contemplate. Because there's a lot of things that happen with feelings, and controlling your thinking can be a forward working remedy to not allow the ability to give life to some of those thoughts that become the inspiration for feelings that are that much more focused on gloom and doom. And yo, man, I want to be bright. I want to be successful. I want to be able to draw and draw amazing illustrations. I want to be able to create monuments that become amazing demonstrations of right thinking. And the variety show is one of those things. Even with the sneakers that we've launched, every sneaker has the idea, sewn and woven into the side of it. Thoughts become things. We're sharing, that pro-social message that for me has to touch everything that I do, everything that I'm a part of. Because the truth is, in so doing, that is how I liberate myself from the idea of despair and hopelessness.
That's amazing. And, I'm sure some people will say, well, Kai, you have all these abilities to launch sneakers, to do the variety shows, but they have to understand you came from, when you were coming up, you had none of these possibilities. And really you manifested it. You created all these thoughts that you actually made into reality. That's what's important to, obviously remind people of, I think, when you talk about these things.
With that, and that's the thing. So here you are, if you're a personality that happens to be in a place where, hey, you're on a platform that allows you the spotlight, and a very large microphone, I think the responsibility, that comes with being there is not to get lost in the thought that, oh, this is in celebration of my accomplishment to, be a star athlete, or or something in that respect. The responsibility there is to give back and recognize in that moment, hey, I am just like a lot of other people that are in the process of unfolding or seeing their personal development and larger aspirations realized. Everybody wants to be increased. And if you work in a way that allows you to be of service, which is technically what I feel is my responsibility to do, then when you reveal yourself to be a person that has gotten to where you've gotten, in this case, the spotlight, because you worked collectively and created, ways to overcome the objections, then now the people that celebrate or are willing to, spend 5 minutes of their time to, entertain a moment of interacting with you, or to listen to an interview, or buy an ebook, or relate, with, hey, I'll pick up a copy of Chronicles of King Kai. Let me check that out. They're looking for the idea of increase. And I think it's important to be able to recognize that, in doing that, you recognize yourself to be an agent of service, and it becomes your responsibility to lace every interview, and every product that you are a part of, that is a part of helping you develop your developing enterprise, with that idea of increase and opportunity for everyone else. Yeah, what's funny? It's a funny question. Yeah, but I think how you meditate is
the reason why I ask is because because we're working on a project together right now, right? And I'm going through the old footage that we shot in the gym with you, like back in 2012, and it's like footage of you in the gym. For the workout, you like kind of like sitting down and like your eyes are closed, and it looks like you were meditating before the workout. That's what it looked like. So I wasn't sure if you actually, maybe back then you were meditating, but I was wondering, have you actually meditated recently?
I think how your process of what you would call meditation, I think might become maybe unique to the individual. I know one thing, when I do my cardio, and even when I'm training and even when I'm like painting and stuff, there's a process of like breathing, that whether you were taught, what's the so-called right way to do it or not, whether you know about chakras and all of that stuff, whether you are aware of the terminology that's identified as, oh, he knows what he's talking about. No, I don't think he knows what he's talking about. The reality is, for me, is that I believe that because this idea is based in some kind of truth that's universal, that really doesn't matter or doesn't care about how well versed you are in understanding and the use of the right terminology for it, as the so-called learned people on the subject may say it is. However, the fact that it's real and it's based on something that is very, very much a part of the natural way of being human, getting in touch with your breath, getting control of your breathing, and, working within that, to some degree, whether you studied it or not. I think every time I look at something, the more I look at it, when I know what I'm looking for, I'm a lot more likely to find it. You know what I mean? It's like movement. I feel like they're natural stretches and things that became a part of me trying to learn how to open up, and just to work within becoming aware of my instrument, to train train more effectively or more efficiently as an athlete. And even to dance or to do other things. I think, when I started trying to become conscious of my movement and opening and becoming aware of my muscles and my joints and movement, I was not surprised to later on find that there were other people that would say from a distance, hey man, did you study yoga? Or, hey man, I saw you do were you studying some martial art? And I think even though at that time I wasn't aware of the things that I was, technically being informed of at the time, I realized that because the fundamental root is based in an idea that is just as real and as, it's like science. You can find it in everything, whether you know to call it gravity or what you would call it in any other language, gravity is still real to you, and it's still a part of the natural law, that, the world is governed by, so yeah.
You self-taught medication, meditation.
Meditation.
Right.
Did you say medication? Ha! Yeah. Yeah. Well, meditation part of it, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think naturally, whether you've been taught, what a chakra is or not, I think that, on some level, when you start to, really, explore the potentials of doing something, getting involved in your physical, just even running or walking every day. I'm trying to walk through my breath and I'm talking because I feel better when I do it. I feel like that becomes a kind of meditation. You know what I mean?
Maybe your next ebook should be about meditation. Tell my Kai Greene. That's a good idea, man.
I definitely would need to research it a lot more to talk from a more learning perspective, but I appreciate it.
That's interesting, man, for sure. Let's talk about the new variety show. I saw it. I thought it was amazing. It was interesting. It was crazy, man. So how did you come up with this idea? Is it something that you developed a long time ago and then you finally did it, or is it something that recently came to you?
I always wanted to do Dynamic Muscle Company NYC. I remember there was a time some years back when I remember taking some dance classes, and every time I took the class, I used to feel so good when I walked out of the class. And the idea of ever really imagining myself to grow into what could become, a great dancer, seemed not to be the larger reason why I took the class. I enjoyed taking the class, and though I wanted to improve my dancing ability, and though I wanted to improve my ability to express a lot of the thoughts and ideas that I think are worth, seeking that form of expression, and to have better command of the instruments and tools that you could develop taking the class. I think that every time I took that class, I thought, man, I would love to do my own show where maybe I wasn't, the top, Alvin Ailey dancer, but you know what? This is how I feel, and I feel so good when I do this. You know what, man? I would want to just be able to showcase that. And then every time I sat down and I thought about, writing and sharing my writing, or what I thought about really cool sketch comedy concepts, a lot of the time I would have turned around and said, well, you know what, I don't want to do that. I wouldn't want to share that with anyone because it's not professional. And, if it's professional, that's the only time that you should ever think to showcase anything. But then when I realized it, that's the same stuff that would have limited my developing bodybuilding career. If I thought when I was an amateur, when I was an aspiring teenage athlete, oh man, you know what, I'm going to wait before I compete to the time when I feel like I've developed a professional looking physique that I think is worthy to go and be judged and submit myself to be criticized for the work that I've been able to produce. No, I think, you know what, man, we're going to go ahead and do this. I enjoy the acting, and rather than wait for someone to write a script for me, I'm going to write my own damn script, and through the variety show concept though, I get a chance to play, and I get a chance to couple up with or partner up with a bunch of other, developing actors or talents or people that are just in the process of, finding themselves, giving themselves license to be willing to try as well. And guess what? We create something really cool. And through the improv, we start to look at ways to take that improv and develop it into a script. And every script idea that we've been able to start to showcase after the first episode and the second episode really started to become a representation of some larger ideas that I'm looking to kind of polish up and continue, to develop. So we got an idea. It depends. There's some really cool stuff that we got a chance to explore just by, it's some really cool written stuff that we got a chance to produce that was born out of a really cool improv. There's a Minikai and me moment that I am so proud of, that really allowed me to connect with this plush doll that really starts to become a sentient being capable of making his own decisions, and he's actually interacting on camera with some real issues that are important to him. And yeah, we ended up being able to tie that up into a really cool pro-social message, because at the end of the day, Minikai represents that. That is exactly what Minikai represents, you know? And to be able to do that and share it, you know, in the variety show is just, it's just really cool. I think it's a process of development that gets a chance to be exposed and shown at its best. And the variety show, in that sense, becomes a showcase for the writing, acting, singing, dancing, and even the ventriloquism that kind of has to happen in an effort to bring the plush character alive.
You know, but for those who haven't seen it, you play many multiple characters on each show. It's a sketch show, so you play multiple characters. Actually, sometimes in one skit you play multiple characters.
Yeah.
So is that challenging? I mean, to talk about the process, is it challenging to do that? How complex is the actual filming process?
Well, you know, I don't want to say it's really difficult, but it can be, you know, it really can be. I like the ability to kind of try to stretch and to develop myself or see myself as a developing actor in that respect, as well as all the other hats that I'm kind of wearing behind the scenes. I think it's just a really important thing to do, particularly now at this time in my life and career. You know, it's one thing to have great ideas, but if you don't develop your idea, and if you don't, you know, a lot of times, you know, invest what is required to see those ideas developed into the fuller sense of what those ideas can be, then you can find yourself cut out totally from the larger possibility, you know? So yeah, the variety show opportunity allows me, again, to put on different characters, play with it, you know, not be afraid, you know, to kind of step out there. You know, one of the sketches, we got a chance to introduce a character named Billie Jean. It was very interesting because behind the scenes, or I guess in the public spotlight, especially on Instagram, you had a lot of people that turned around, you know, made all kinds of jokes and had all kinds of negative, you know. So Billie Jean, really interestingly enough, the character Minikai is not the personality Kai Greene's son. Minikai represents the limitless future possibility that is expressed in the childlike innocence of your underdeveloped self. So if Kai Greene, the personality, recognizes his ability to be successful to this point in his life, was built on recognizing the potential while being a little boy, standing in the mirror, looking at himself in the mirror in the bathroom, doing push-ups against the sink, looking in the mirror, but envisioning a larger future possibility, staring back at him, you know, with bigger shoulders and a bigger chest, but more importantly, resolution to a lot of the issues that that young man would find himself struggling against. And at the time when struggling, you're 13 or 12 and you're doing the push-ups and you want to be bigger, you need to be stronger. The world is such a complex place that at times when you feel you're attacked and being attacked on every side, it can almost seem very, very hopeless. You know, who do you turn to? Who do you ask for support? And though we may look outside, and though it's important to find influences that will help you, one of the things that I think for me personally is Kai Greene, what I saw and what I still see today is the importance of being able to love yourself, you know, talk to yourself, you know, and for the little boy doing push-ups, looking into the the mirror on the sink in the bathroom, you know, it almost becomes a moment like, if you're a Star Wars fan, there's a scene in episode 1 where there's a holographic image of the character Princess Leia. And she says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope." It's a call of action to a warrior that will step up and save the day. I believe that that little boy that represented the childlike innocence in us all, that's looking for the guidance, the support, the nurturing, was leaning on that sink, staring into the mirror in the bathroom, trying to imagine himself larger, stronger, bigger, but more importantly, with answers. Help me. You are my only hope. What would you say if you were that larger possibility that sat on the other side of 20 or 30 years of invested effort in developing yourself? What would you say if you had the opportunity to find that mirror and see the young you looking back? Yo, man, I got you. You would encourage him to do all the things that he's supposed to do. Hey, keep doing those push-ups. Is it worth it to do it? Yes, it is. Is it possible to be able to grow? They say I can't grow without steroids. You can. They say I can't do this. They say I can't. They say I won't do anything because I got a scar on my face. They say I won't be able to be on television or be in movies or be on, because I got a big nose and I'm black and I'm just not as attractive as this guy is. Or, my point, when having the opportunity, representing that larger possibility on the other side of that, you want to look back and say, hell yeah. It is worth it to work. I got you. Come on, Minikai, you can do it. Minikai becomes a vehicle to be able to show what that conversation looks like through the variety show that is Dynamic Muscle Company NYC. We get a chance to really show what that is, give that life, and we do it in a way that allows the audience to be able to hopefully hang out with us, get a chance to experience what we're talking about, laugh a little, think a little bit, and be entertained.
No, and that definitely has a message, of course, absolutely. So what was the hardest or the most challenging sketch for you to film so far?
You know what? There's a moment where we're actually after the Billie Jean scene. Now, a lot of people will see the Billie Jean or saw like snippets or, you know.
So what's the Billie Jean character? What is it exactly?
So Billie Jean, so technically, if the character, Minikai, is the product of the brainchild of the personality, his Kai Greene personality, his thinking, you know, then what happens is Kai is both the father and the mother. So in the scene that we now introduce the Billie Jean character technically represented the, I guess, woman side of that equation. The mother side.
You played the character.
Right. Yeah, that's right. So Kai plays, obviously, yes, Billie Jean. And she, now that was, you know what, that was not hard. That actually was a lot of fun. As we filmed, you know, everybody everybody that was, you know, responsible for being behind the scenes when we were filming laughed, we had jokes. We knew we were gonna, you know, be met with a lot of jokes and stuff. But at the end of the laughter, you know, once we finished filming and once we kind of finished putting that whole thing together, you know, the idea and the hope was that when this material is later seen, hopefully the message comes through and the context then would make a lot more sense.
Right. Well, it's almost like you have to create something shocking to bring people in and then deliver the message.
It's funny because the truth is, the point in the beginning wasn't to do something shocking. You know what I mean? It just kind of went along with the natural process of creating the material. You know what I mean?
Well, seeing you with a wig as a woman was pretty shocking.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you know, I certainly got a lot of laughs, but also I get a chance to play Captain Kirk. Can you imagine? I play Captain Kirk, dude. I mean, now mind you, I've had nothing but tremendous respect and admiration for the actor, William Shatner, and how many other times in your life will you find yourself in an opportunity where you're able to be called upon to, in a mini production where there is money being spent, where the cameras are rolling, somebody's paying for lights, somebody's paying for cameras, somebody's paying for sound, we got rolling, everything is going on, we got a director, and at the end of this, the person that's paying for it is you. But my point is, how often will you ever find in your lifetime the ability to walk in and play, Captain Kirk in a sketch that you got a chance to write that highlights some really cool stuff that is a point that you wanted to make through sketch comedy?
I think you're a marketing genius, though. I think you have that in you naturally. Genius when it comes to marketing.
Oh, I don't know about genius, but we're having fun, and at the end of it, there's still a pro-social message that I think is very, very important.
I like that part for sure.
And yeah, man, and if a lot of times what happens is I've seen where people never get a chance to know what you have underneath your surface, So whether you're a good guy, a bad guy, or a person, with brilliant and big ideas, the truth is, if you do not take advantage of every opportunity to showcase, if you're not, in the process of thinking about, hey, how do I develop these ideas and how do I take them to the fore, in ways that will allow the right people to see this stuff and identify for yourself, well, who is the right person? A lot of times I think the example, so people just won't know unless you show it, and sometimes you can't really show something unless you put some time and effort into doing it. So the variety show behind the scenes, it has its own cost, and it's had its own cost. But I think one of the things that comes along with the idea when you say, hey man, I want to do something, one of the things that comes along with the actual execution of that thing that you say you want to do is your willingness now to use your resources and if need be, develop more, in an effort to get the thing accomplished that you say you want to get done. So I believe the variety show has a great value because of the whole creative element and the pro-social ideas that I still think are very much a part of every underlying message in the pieces that are highlighted and shown. We have an animation at the end of every episode, that relates again to Chronicles of King Kai, which is something that is, that's my graphic novel. That's, a life story that's told in a very colorful, metaphoric reference that is a hero's journey, sci-fi, sword, action, and adventures all told right there in Chronicles of King Kai. And I wrote it, and I've lived it. And through the pages of Chronicles of King Kai, I'm actually able to deliver a life-changing message that took me the better part of 30 years to learn, Yeah, we can say very easily that I recognize today that my thoughts are powerful. It is through my thinking that I've learned how to take a 7-inch arm and make it a 22, 23-inch arm. It is because I'm now on the other side of having done that, that I now am able to speak from the learned perspective of knowing that it's real. The fact that we've been able to do that as a developing athlete, in the spotlight over the years has allowed us to showcase the fact that it is real. We have done this. So where we are right now, we're not a person that's reading something from a book and going along with it because, my mama told me so. Or the next guy next to me, that says to speak from a learned perspective is able to talk about it in a way that inspires confidence. But now we've lived this experience. And as we have, when somebody asks me, hey man, so how did you take your arm from 7 inches to make it what it became? I'm now able to say, forget about all the other stuff. Recognize this point. Your thoughts are powerful. Your thoughts become things, the things that will shape the reality around you. This is not rhetoric. This is not, just that jargon nonsense that, somebody will dismiss as positive, just thinking positive. He's just talking that positive thinking nonsense. But this is now, you know, just real life experience that we get a chance to speak with some real lessons learned through colorful metaphoric reference that allows King Kai and the cast of characters, King Cthulhu and Prince Heath, Queen Calyrus, all, you know, entertain and make sense.
That's amazing, man. Now let's talk about your ebooks. How many have you published already? Because I know you have a catalog. You basically created a publishing company for fitness.
Yeah, you know what? You know what? The funny thing about saying that right now, because in order to recognize the value in even what we're talking about, it's important to know a little bit about the story behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. There was a time when, real talk, I didn't learn how to read till I was 16. My point with saying this is that there was a time when, even when I thought about the idea of wanting to tell stories or talking about a subject through any literary possibility, you know, that's certainly not you. Because the reading and the writing thing was like something that, you know, that's not you. You know, you better never think about, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is that as a developing bodybuilder, as a teenager, you know, a really, really amazing person gave me a book. Now, so crazy because the book that he gave me was like, it was a thick book. It was thicker than the Bible. It was one of those things, it's like, you might as well, under any other circumstances, would have been like, yo, you might as well just never even imagine that this guy's ever going to read that. And up until that time in my life, I never had a reason to want to learn how to read. But my point is that with that book was called the Arnold Schwarzenegger Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. And at the time when I was just preteen and then, you know, growing into my teenage years, I wanted to become an athlete. I wanted to become a bodybuilder. I wanted to digest all of this information. And that book really became the starting point for, you know, what would later become a more an interesting journey when we start talking about the self-development aspect of it. It's what the push-ups and the squat thrusts and the, you know, upside down push-ups, what those things started. The next place to go from that was, you know, when we start to talk about the personal development idea, you know, okay, well, if you really want to become an athlete, then you're going to need to get this information. You want to know how to diet. You want to, well, I lived in an institution where the dieting idea was just, you know, bread and water. Bread and water. Bread and water. I still grew muscle up, you know. But my point is that while doing that, I got this book and it was given to me as a gift. And I realize now that it wasn't because the people thought, hey man, that guy's going to be Mr. Olympia one day. Or hey man, that guy's going to become an influence that one day will, you know, speak to the whole world of bodybuilding. No, the person just thought, hey man, you need to learn how to overcome some of these obstacles. And if you don't, this is going to be a very big problem for you going forward. I like the fact that you were able to do these push-ups and you're expressing to me your willingness to want to develop yourself in that way. I'm going to give you this. Inside of this book is the key that will unlock, if you get it, you know, your ability to tap into all kinds of development unparalleled in the direction that you say you want to go most. Good luck. I got that book. I digested every photograph. I struggled through every paragraph, but those paragraphs eventually became pages, and pretty soon I was able to start writing out my own training, my own ideas. I was able to start to use the example of that book. I was able to start, okay, they said here, pull-ups, this latissimus, let me see, latissimus. In time, I would understand it to be latissimus dorsi. I was able to identify where it was. And now when I trained, okay, so 2 pull-ups, 3 pull-ups, 3 pull-ups becomes 17, 20 in a clip. Now I can go in. Anyway, get to a barbell, blah, blah, blah. In time, my little notebook ultimately became what I can now look back on as a blueprint, you know, to not only explain how I was able to take control of my life in the direction of getting the physical the physical development part of it understood. Now we're talking about overcoming illiteracy. Now we're talking about, hey man, actually developing what will become resources for you to support how it is today when we start to talk about stepping into the limitless possibility. I'm not a person that read it in the book. I've lived this life experience, and I believe that that is the example. So when we talk right now about, hey man, the ebooks and how many you got, real talk, I learned that by writing down every day how many sets I did of a particular exercise, writing out the specific exercise that it was, making a note to myself on what body part specifically that it target and what did I feel as I did it. In time, that will become what now serves as we can do ebooks all day, but the point is that ebook, the lessons learned in an effort to develop what becomes those ebooks, is larger than just the sets, reps, numbers, and everything else that we relate to the physical training. It's recognizing the idea that this is about self-development. At the root of this experience, we're talking about self-development. My thoughts are powerful. My thoughts become things. And with that, we can overcome and become the thing that we want to be most.
No, I think it's amazing. I think it's practical advice. It's functional advice, practical advice, and directions, thoughts that you created over the years, and you're passing it on to the people.
Now, I'm also at a place now, too, where I'm able to actually, hey, when we know about kettlebells and stuff, let me look up there. I'm actually able to pull in resources now to help me, not to help the product, not be limited by just my experience today. So we're actually in time, as you were able to say now, yeah, man, I started with one ebook, one became two, two became three, 4, 5, and 6. But now where we're at now, I now have a system that allows my product and project not to be held hostage by the limitations of just my experience. So now I'm able to actually confer or relate with people that have a little bit more experience, particularly in some of the other things like bands and like very fortunately enough, when the crisis hit as it did, a lot of people found themselves, hey man, I'm using bands now, I'm trying to find out about kettlebells. Because we had the ebook, system, and because now I've developed a relationship that I developed with my editor, we were able to actually find out more information that people wanted to know more about in an effort to help them in this, this time of crisis. And we were able to pull that in and put that in as well. Here's some ideas that are very, very helpful. Now, I say this because during the time of the crisis, I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where, I kind of had my own home gym, the way we kind of dealt with that, without just speaking from my experience, was we were able to try to imagine what this situation is like for people that didn't have access to that, and just invest in putting together some resources that can be of service to them.
No, that's great, man. So you have a whole catalog of books now, which is amazing.
Yes.
That's great, man. So what is your typical day like? I'm sure a lot of people want to know, what time do you wake up? What time do you go to sleep? What does your day consist of? How many times you work out? Can you give us like a general, when you're not traveling, of course, like when you're home, what is your typical?
It depends. The truth is, I have to get up at 4:30 in the morning. Now, that's the schedule. 4:30 in the morning. Now, sometimes the reality is, if I don't go to bed at 1, if I go to bed at 1, getting up at 4 is very, very, very hard. But in order to try to align some of these ducks that I have and try to hit everything effectively, because technically now, we have a lot of things to do, a lot of things that I have to speak in service of. With dynamic muscle supplements, we got, Dynamic Muscle Comic, which is a thing that's developing, Chronicles of King Kai, which technically is now as a production behind the scenes, is really, growing into a whole nother level of responsibility. And that's,
why do you have to wake up at 4:30? I'm curious because I saw a lot of people's schedules and they wake up like at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., like 5 a.m. Like, why 4:30 specifically?
because if I don't, I will not be able to get through. Because each one of these company ideas that I have, and each one of these, they represent, you know, a certain amount of work effort that has to be put in to it each day. And then when you consider, hey man, I gotta get up, I gotta train, I still gotta do my cardio. And then after I've done those things, then I still have to start, you know, chipping through this stuff. Yeah. Now, yeah, gotta get up, gotta do the cardio. Cardio, my first meal, my first training session, which is almost insane to imagine to do when you consider the fact that now, you know, there are so many other things that you really have going on that technically, you know, someone would say, hey man, you know, what are you doing that for? I still feel like when I get up in the morning and I take my Savage Roar and I get on the step mill, or, you know, the reality is I feel like I am able to breathe and my thoughts just start running. And I'm able to start to get myself in a mindset where I'm able to start thinking about systematically how I start to approach my day, and prepare for meetings, prepare for, you know, the next part of this process when we think about developing some of these other business ventures and even concepts that need to be developed. The variety show in itself had become, you know, a very large responsibility. It had grown into a larger responsibility. What in the beginning was just some simple, you know, improv here and there, and then, you know, a colorful, you know, costume here or there, and all right, you know, kind of grew into, okay, wow, now I really have to sit down and organize, you know, the bullet points for what becomes a script. And then now the script, you know, I have to consider what happens with each of these characters and what's the meaning behind this character. What does this character want in this scene, you know, and how does the conflict, what will be the interesting conflict? Hey, what's going on socially right now that, you know, we could speak about, and what is the point, you know, what's the punchline, you know? So yeah, being more active with my writing, being a lot clearer about, you know, what I need to do as a creator, and kind of developing what becomes the product, you know, from the mind of the creator.
When you wake up at 4:30, you do cardio and you train on an empty stomach before you eat?
Yeah, I definitely do. Yeah, empty stomach.
Is it beneficial to train on an empty stomach as well?
Not really. I'll take some branch chain. It depends, you know. A lot of times what will happen is you'll finish the cardio, you'll get wrapped up into moving from there right into your meal. And then from your meal, you're going to get a little bit of training in, and then it's right into calls. And
do you eat on schedule, or you just, like, at this point, do you still have like regimented meals like every few hours, or is it more like, is it loosely at this point?
Yeah, well, you know, I have a meal prep with Trifecta, which has been really, really cool with helping me behind the scenes. The idea of standing around and cooking, and the old days of cooking at every meal and mapping it out and putting it in Tupperware and putting it in a bag and carry it with me and making sure that I have 7 meals cooked, packed, and ready to go before I leave the house. Yeah, that's it's become a lot more impractical to do today. But with that said, you know, Trifecta's been really cool with being able to ship me my food, and I mean, we'll have it, throw it in the microwave, and I keep it. To answer your question about am I still structured with my eating? Yes. Enough to know that, hey man, I'm gonna do about 5-6 meals today. Before we call it a day. If I'm up a little longer than I'm supposed to, maybe 7. I have seen where there are times when you get carried away or wrapped up in a meeting, or just the throes of, you know, trying to be responsible with developing your projects. And, oh man, what happened? Oh, I missed a meal. I missed 2 meals. And let me tell you, when I start painting and I'm sitting there and I'm working on my project, you know, it's almost like that part of your brain, like, does not, you know, listen to time. So that it doesn't yield to time. So it's like that part of your brain, I imagine, that is just it's creative, you know, and that creative process can unfold and you're totally oblivious to time. So you almost have to use your discipline to say, oh, wow, you know, wait a minute, it's been 2 hours. I got to eat. You know, what time was it? You know, hey, what's up? I'm going to say this because of all the years that I spent, you know, working as a professional athlete and a person that, you know, successfully made a living, you know, from, you know, developing those disciplines of eating on time and things. I've developed some skills that allow me to be pretty good with looking at and assessing from sight, that's 4 ounces, or this is 6 ounces, or that's 8 ounces, or, you know, I'm pretty good with at times being able to, oh yeah, wait a minute, it's been, yeah, it's gotta be, yep, okay, it's definitely time to eat. So watching the clock in that sense is not something that I do as much, just like the scale. I don't have to walk around with a scale today, much like I had to do, you know, at other times earlier in my career and my life as a developing man when it came to my eating. But honestly, yeah, you know, I still eat. I still eat in a very systematic and regimented way. Yes. Depends. So on days, so I have a schedule. I have to have my schedule. We draw up my schedule every 2-3 days. And, you know, there are a lot of things that change in the schedule depending on, you know, where we are in the week. That said, I'm able to stick with my schedule for the most part. And through that schedule, I'm able to better map out feelers that allow me to, you know, just try to stay on target with still remembering to eat and still, you know, getting to the gym. I know now, though, that if I don't train at the time that I'm supposed to train, the way my schedule works out, I'll end up not being able to train at all. That's one of the things that come along with the responsibility of, you know, some of the stuff that I've kind of developed at this stage in my life and career. And because my training is still very, very important to me, you know, it's one of those things that just have to be on the schedule, and I have to be still just as disciplined with seeing that gets done. Yeah.
It's crazy. I remember when you were in prep, when you used to compete. I remember filming with you on the first generation iron. It was crazy. It was like 5 a.m. cardio and abs. Then you went home, ate, and then you went back to the gym, and then you went home, and then again, like 3 times you went to that gym. It was crazy, man.
But at that time, you know, the most important thing in my life, you know, was the thing that I was invested in as distinguishing myself as an athlete in this life. And for that reason, the thing that helped me be very successful at that time in my life was for me to be very clear about just that, you know. So when other objections would come, when other obstacles would start to come up to pull with their own demand on my time or on my concentration, because, you know, at that time in my life, that was the chief way that I identified, you know, my value and just who I said I was to myself in the mirror every day. It was the priority, you know, it was the only thing that.
Tunnel vision. It, right? I think they call it tunnel vision, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, very interesting because, you know, I realized too that there's a time and a place for everything. And I remember Lee Haney used to talk a lot about like balance, you know, and one of the things that I could recall the entire time that I identified myself as solely a competitor or competitive athlete, yeah, there was no such thing as balance in that equation when you drew it out. It was all or nothing, you know, all or nothing. That was the thing that we do all day, every day. And every thought that went into the course of that day in some way had to have a positive impact on how I improve my game, you know, as an athlete. perspective has changed a lot, you know. And
You equally, you're probably more busy now than you were back then. I mean, you have so many businesses and projects and a lot of things that, you know, in the making. Do you ever have time for leisure? Like, do you ever watch TV? Do you ever like just take time to like do so? I want to know. People want to know about this. Like, what does Kai do? Kai do for fun sometimes? You know, like, what do you watch on Netflix? What do you do?
what I do for fun, honestly, I am excited to develop new characters. I am excited to spend time, you know, like for Chronicles of King Kai, one of the things that we did was I came up with this elaborate system of movement that, you know, King Kai and only, you know, people from his universe, you know, do. And in order to do that, I was able to take my love for, you know, the study of muscles and movement, and design what I thought was a really cool improvement, you know, on already existing, you know, human physiology, you know, and to talk about the design, to sit there and do sketches and illustrations that kind of make the point of how, you know, this shoulder system works and how it works with another set of shoulders and how we can explain, you know, how, you know, this organism could move. It becomes a wonderful blend of the things that I understood about science and the things that I understood about, you know, the different things that I was able to experience in the love and appreciation for my sport and the journey that, you know, studying anatomy as, you know, I was trying to, you know, make strides in improving how I can make my physique better, you know, or how I could build my physique. Now I was able to use that to design what I thought would be a really cool improvement on a warrior's physiology. For me, that is awesome. You know, the nerd geek in me that I probably don't give a lot of credit to, you know, really enjoys that, you know, really enjoy that. And having, you know, being able to have conversations with people that, you know, that knew a lot more about movement from, you know, perspective, you know, conversation through courses of study that I've not experienced as an athlete. You know, maybe I could have experienced as an athlete, but, you know, as far as, you know, talking about going to, you know, school and getting a master's degree in kinesiology or, you know, some of the exercise sciences that relate to some of the things that I thought were relevant in explaining some of the ways that these systems could work became just more than fascinating for me. I enjoy that a great deal. And that is, if I, like time of leisure, if we had some, particularly right now, it's kind of difficult because right now there's a lot of stuff we have to do, even like with our project, you know, scheduling and stuff is critical because that's the only way we're going to be able to get, you know, the things that we want to do done. And with so many things we want to do, you just have to have a schedule.
No, for sure. And so I feel like your creativity and work on your work is your fun because you love what you do. And I feel you on that one because I'm the same way. If I just stay home and just like watch TV, like I get bored of that. I can't take that. You know what I mean? Like it's just
that would be depressing. That's
yeah.
how
there you go. Yeah.
What's going on with me? I feel that's how it started. That.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. So you know, a lot of bodybuilders, right, when they stop, you know, getting on the stage, basically the body's changing immediately, right? There's a lot of before and after pictures. In your case, though, you know, you've maintained, from what I can see, and from everybody can see, you maintain your muscle mass. You still look like you're ready, man. Obviously, you still work out. You still do what you got to do. But what is the secret to longevity? You know, to staying, you know what I mean, with the muscle mass, to continue doing this year after year? What is your secret to still doing it and doing it like to on your level, you know?
I don't know about the longevity part of it. I think that man, you know, wow, that in itself I think would be an amazing conversation, particularly when we think about a lot of the things that are going on in the, you know, the climate and seeing some of the amazing realities that sacrifices that a lot of the, you know, former champions are dealing with. I don't know. I look at like Lee Haney and I think, wow, you know, damn, you know, that is, you know, I guess in this moment, I want to err on the side of being responsible and just, you know, always encourage, you know, all the athletes that are coming up, you know, and the people that are looking to this with the eye of enthusiasm. You know, I've heard people say, you know, go hard or go home, you know. And, you know, I realized, man, you know, Lee Haney used to talk about balance. You know, at the time when I used to hear him talk about that as a kid, I thought that is, you know, nah, man, go hard or go home. You know, he's talking that, but he's not going to do that in real life because he's at the top and, you know, he's taking guys out. And, you know, I realize now that what a wonderful ambassador, you know, personalities like that were, you know, when speaking to the larger idea of, you know, the personal management issue that has to be realized for the athlete, not just in the spotlight, but I mean, when we start to talk about the real behind the scenes stuff, you know, the personal responsibility, personal management stuff, I think it starts there when we start talking about the longevity stuff. I think that, you know, dealing with your depression, being responsible with managing how you care for yourself, you know, I think is a real conversation that sometimes, you know, gets overlooked, you know. I can recall coming to the gym and you're training and, hey, you're not strong today, you know, and it's like, well, what's wrong with you? You know, when, you know, go hard or go home may not be appropriate all the time. You know, there may be a time when, you know, man, you might need to, you know, be measured with your approach, you know, and the idea of being reasonable or keeping an ear and mind that's available to listen to the voice of reason is, I think, just important. And the idea of, when you started talking, well, what is that, you know, the longevity, key to longevity, I think, and I don't know, I'm still in the process. I'm still in the process of identifying what that means for me. You know, I know you're an example, you know, you're an example to somebody, you know, even if the person looking and watching and listening may just be, you know, the child in you, the underdeveloped you, the unconscious mind that's saying, hey, man, I'm looking for direction. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are my only hope. You know, how do you answer his request? Or how do you answer her request? I think the key to the longevity, though, is how you answer. You know, hey, help me. You are my only hope. I need you to make good decisions right now. You know, and what those decisions are, I think, you know, depends on the situation and the circumstance, you know, but, you know, the way to answer that question, I think it really rests in, you know, self-love, personal management, you know, and how you care for yourself.
Did you adjust the way you train? Well, like, you know, let's say 5 years ago to now, like, for example, using more machines and free weights. And by the way, there's a kind of like a lot of people have different opinions on it. Do you think free weights give you the same results as machines? Because some people are talking about training smartly, and they say machines is a safer way to go if you want longevity. Do you have an opinion on that?
Hey, you know what? I don't. This is one thing I always wanted to understand for myself. When I felt like I felt like the heavens opened up for me as a developing athlete, a developing bodybuilder, when I understood the point that the machine, you know, is not the thing that I need to be concerned about in the gym. You know, the machine, whether it's the top of the line machine that they talk about or the whatever the name is, the primary machine that I need to be thinking about, the instrument that I need to be worried about is me, my body. You know, never do I want to get to a place where I do not recognize that is the driver. You know, that's the driver, you know, not this machine or that machine, you know, because there's still machines that you may have, but the truth is my goal when coming to the gym is not to worship or glorify the machine, unless the company is saying, hey man, this is what we got to do, and this is what your job is. Smile and let's go. And I'm saying that to be funny, but the point that I'm trying to make though is the most important machine there is your body, is your instrument. And that is the thing that you're using to talk about having that conversation of care, in that moment, because I may care about hitting my rear delts as opposed to hitting, the side delt or my lat. It's because of my instrument and the desired effect on that my instrument that I will use that machine, but the machine becomes a tool. To say that this tool is better than another tool, I think it depends on the situation. There are times when, hey man, let's say you're rehabbing an injury, and sometimes, a standardized, selectorized piece of equipment that you may have in your gym doesn't quite allow you the same kind of range of motion that you need in order to start to talk about the corrective pathways of movement that you need. In which case you probably, opt to grabbing a plate or a light dumbbell or something in that respect to represent resistance. So I don't, and I'm not trying to be funny as much as I think that it all has its place. They're all tools, and I think the situation and the circumstance is kind of, revealed to the athlete or the body that's seeking development, to kind of choose, when it's more appropriate to use a dumbbell or when it's more appropriate to use a pulley, system, or when it's more appropriate to use a barbell, there's a lot of stuff in between here, and I think the goals, in any given situation will kind of be the thing that helps you decide what tool is more appropriate.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give for aspiring bodybuilders who want to take it, who want to take bodybuilding seriously, as far as getting a coach or guru to guide them in this?
Aspiring? What do you mean? Like what?
That inspiring, say a bodybuilder is, aspired to take this to the next level, bodybuilding, competitive.
What is that next level? What does that mean?
A
lot of people say next level, and the truth is, next level for you, I say I want to go to the next level, but I'm 13 and I didn't even do the Teenage California yet, back when the Teenage California was a big show to do for teenage bodybuilding. When I talk about going to the next level, the truth is, the next level for me, in truth now, in hindsight, looking back, the next level for me was, hey man, making sure you're sitting down, you're reading every day, you're going through, you're doing your homework on time, and you're following through with the stuff that you're supposed to do that helps you develop in the way that you're supposed to go. Now, after that, we start to talk about, exercising and training. The next level for you may just be, maintaining the discipline of training your entire body, doing some push-ups, doing those pull-ups. The next level for you may just mean, hey man, being more conscientious about, what you're doing and how you're doing it. The next level may just mean, learning how to breathe, and push through the sticking point of, 15 reps. You may need to get to 17, 18, you may need to get to 25, and certainly the developing by doing that, the resource in yourself that helps you to develop that positive self-talk that is necessary to start to will yourself over the obstacles that come up, regardless to how much lactic acid is built up and how well you understand that science. The next step for the next level, going to the next level, may really just be something as simple as learning how to develop a stronger or better positive self-talk, learning how to follow through with the discipline that you say that you want, to develop, and that it's going to be required for you to even be able to get more opportunity out of the stuff that you already know.
I guess what I mean is, if an amateur bodybuilder who's competing and he wants to become a pro, would you recommend that person seeking out a coach or trainer?
An amateur bodybuilder,
like for example, you work with like George Farrell, right? Who's a very respectable, respected man in the business.
Best.
Right. At what point in your career did you connect with him when you were already a pro?
Oh yeah, well, Yeah, I'd gotten a coach. See, here's the thing, you know, there is so much development that I think is required to kind of know what you want to do, you know. And a lot of times, you know, people will buy a tool, you know, in an effort to kind of make up for this stuff, this effort that needs to happen in order for you to, so I'll just pay for it. I'll buy that resource. And, you know, the resource may be a very powerful resource. It may, you know, it may be a very, you know, very insightful, very knowledgeable, very well experienced, you know, maybe a very good tool. But at the end of the day, you know, if you still ain't do your basics, then your ability to use that tool, to maximize, you know, what you can get out of working with that tool, I think, you know, will really be, you know, not as positively rewarding as it could be when we start to think about what your responsibility is when you're an amateur, you know. Yeah, true enough, you can turn around tomorrow and say, hey man, I've done one show, you know, I love this experience, this bodybuilding, I want to be a professional at it, I'm ready to go, I don't want to wait, let me just go and find anybody that I believe will, you know, be the coach to take me to the next level. But if you haven't done any of this work, then you don't really know what the next level is. What is the next level? And your inexperience can allow you to accept ideas that technically don't really represent who you are and where you rightfully are at this time in your development. So I think that can become a very dangerous prospect to consider, you know. Well, I mean, you know, the truth is, you know, if you ask Labrada, you know, or you asked, you know, Dorian Yates that same question, they'd have told you, hey man, you know, do your work, develop yourself. You know, you can say, well, listen, you know, you know, what do you say to the 11-year-old child that says, hey, I'm ready to have sex? Huh? You're 11 years old. It sounds funny. I know it's uncomfortable. I saw you like, whoa. But my point with saying that is, you know, you're 11. You're 11. What do you know about the next level? What is the next level for you? You know, do you need to be dealing with very powerful tools to make sure that you are, you know, what do you need right now? You know, and I think it's important to recognize that it starts there, you know, because the help with developing the right thinking process as it relates to mapping out what the correct course is for you. You know, when we start to talk about those questions later on about longevity, how can you reach to longevity if earlier on in just the beginning stages of your experience, you're not allowed to develop the foundation that you're supposed to, that old school bodybuilding would have talked about. Because this is not just about getting big for the contest. This is about personal development. At the root of this experience, this is self-mastery. And yeah.
You may argue though that at that point, when you're still underdeveloped, you need the most guidance. And if you don't have somebody guiding you, you might make a lot of mistakes on you. That's all I'm saying. You can argue that point as well. It's where you need the most attention. Because once you're ready, you know, let's say on a pro level and you're much, much further in the career, you know, you might not need somebody like, you know, George, for instance.
Well, Tiger Woods had a coach, you know, Michael Jordan had a coach. I mean, the reality is, yeah, to recognize that, hey man, you know, elite level athletes, you know, are able to, you know, benefit from working with the coach. But at the end of the day, I think that there's a lot to be said for the self-mastery component. You know, you're not allowed to master that, you know, and you can't really master that effectively as you think, you know, you know, it's almost like, you know, the mama bird, you know, throwing the baby bird out the nest. You know what I mean? I mean, you're going to have to fly. You gotta flap your own wings. You have to learn how to breathe. You have to learn how to do this. Not just talking about it in theory anymore. Go out and do. You have to do. Because in the process of doing, now you really start to explore a whole new life that sits behind the questions that you will have. And your ability to later work with a coach or a sophisticated tool in that respect will be that much more greatly enhanced because you had access to this experience. This is fundamental. Without that, the truth is you're putting the cart before the horse. And one thing that nobody talks about is how many of those guys, I did my first show, I did the team such and such, and I'm gonna be the next. And I got and I'm going to do, and how many of those guys burn out long before you ever get a chance to hear them? Done, career over. Longevity, it's done before they even got a chance to start to have a valid conversation of who you are yet. I think I personally, in this position, I think I would do a disservice to jump on the bandwagon and say, yo, you did your first show. Yeah, now go get a coach. Go get a coach. I'm not trying to knock any of the coaches. My coach is the greatest. Coach Farrell, you are the man. And everybody out there that's actually in the process of making, the practice of coaching available. I'm not attacking that. What I am saying, though, to the aspiring athlete that is asking me this question that you're representing right now, and you're saying, hey, Kai, what is your advice to the up-and-coming athlete, the aspiring one, the hopeful that says, hey, look, this is what I want to do. What's your advice about getting a coach? I'd say stay in your lane. That's not where you need to be right now. Understand what your basics are. You technically at that point, if there's anybody that's worth their salt in this game, that is going to be an influence to help you or at least point you in the right direction. That's what they'd be telling you. Hey man, get a solid grasp of those fundamentals. Your ability to be able to make better decisions and even, more productive use of coaching and things in the future will depend on these lessons that you're able to learn and these skills you're able to master now.
For sure. All right, Kai, two more questions, all right? So your friend Phil Heath made the announcement that he's coming back to compete this year. What is your take on that? How do you feel about him coming back to compete?
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. I think it's interesting. I think it gives the sport something that it needs. It definitely makes the run this year a little bit more interesting. It's already had a lot of challenges to this point, coming back from the crisis, the COVID, and its impact on our sport and the world. I think, Phil coming back to hear this is not only interesting, but it comes with it. It comes with a reason to kind of care, for someone that probably, maybe have found themselves so beaten down by some of the crisis, the things that have just been in the news of late. And maybe some people altogether have stopped listening to the news and just, hey, well, you know what, I'm just so, I don't care anymore. And then it's like, oh, hey, Phil's coming back. Oh, really? Well, let me, now let me see. I think it's an interesting thing because technically there's a lot to be said about that. How is the judging going to work? It was not by accident that, some of the things that happened already, it's a very interesting thing. It's a new time. And I think, one of the things you'll hear in the minds of the new fans, this guy has a gut, or this guy has distension. And the truth is, wait a minute, bodybuilding 101, past tense, Mr. Olympia was won by the back. Not everybody, there have been wonderful and amazing physiques throughout the history of our sport, but one of the things that was consistent with what was established as Mr. Olympia winning criteria when judging it was what's going on from the rear. You know, you had to be able to do amazing work from the rear. Every athlete that was coming up in the game when I was a kid or when I was younger understood, yo, man, you've got to develop your back, but not just your back, because at some point, a lot of guys had great backs. But the quality of having a great back meant that you were able to pay attention to a lot of those other details. We saw people like Rich Gaspari was able to come into the game and bring cross-striated glutes, a new level of conditioning that now made it so that muscles that were obscured were now going to need to be visible. And that was going to be in itself a new reason to judge and identify 1, 2, 3, you know, who's clearer and cleaner and drier in these areas. And now athletes would have to work in their training specifically to speak to that, you know. So good morning and all these other new exercises that, you know, you might have overlooked in your training, you know, glute kickbacks, a lot of those exercises that guys in the gym would have said, well, those are for women. When you were trying to improve your game from the rear, guess what? These were now exercises that you had to consider doing and do very seriously in an effort to improve the quality of your physique from the back. But it didn't mean that you couldn't develop your lats and you couldn't develop your traps and your rear delts, your brom, but those areas had to be clean. Anyway, my point, you know, with the change, you know, that changed, you know. So bringing Phil Heath back, I think the real question becomes, what is the judging criteria going to be, you know, and how well or fairly will the physique that represents the old era, you know, what is now seemingly becoming the time that the sport is moving away from, with the conscious focus on the smaller waist and more tapered waist and, you know, better control in the midsection. There were guys that had great midsections, beautiful physiques. Nasser El Simbadi, if you look at the history of this sport, this dude, you know, a lot of what had to happen, a lot of what happened had to happen in an effort to do what needed to be done, what was to meet the criteria that existed. You know what I mean? So, I mean, great champion. You know what? I don't know. I really didn't. I didn't expect it. No, I didn't. But I really didn't, you know. Well, I mean, you know, see, for me, it's not a question of whether the Phil Heath physique and what it represents, what it represented, and, you know, what any of the top guys right now, or the reigning Mr. Olympia right now, you know, Brandon Curry represent. I think these are two different ideas that are now being put together on stage. And I mean, other than promotion and marketing, I really just don't, if the judging is going where it is, you know, then I don't know how that's, I don't know, I don't think it's a hard decision, because at that point, what's happening is there's a choice that's made. You know what I mean? And if you're going to choose, you're either going to choose an apple or you're going to choose an orange. You know what I mean? Now, the apple's job is to come to that stage that day, you know, with the best polish that it can bring. You know, hey, you're going to take the time to wash it, scrub it with your toothbrush, but you're going to put that, you know, you put a little high gloss finish on it, you know, but that apple is going to be the apple, you know, the best apple that it can be. And that, you know, the orange or grapefruit, I'm just saying, will be what it is. They're good. They're two. It's apples and oranges. I'm just saying that, you know, it's just going to be judged. And the judging, I think, is the larger thing to think about. It really isn't a question of whether or not this physique is going to win. You make a choice. Hey, man, I like well-developed lats. You know, I want to see, you know, tight insertions here. I want to see crisp lines that separate there. I want to see hamstrings that you know, knowing what these guys have brought in the past, I just don't, you don't want to judge someone for the past. You want to judge them by the package that they bring. You know, if we're talking in theory 101, these are just two different bodies. You know, I don't think it's the only thing we can do now is market and promote. You know, we can sell tickets, you know. But at the end of the day, this is one physique versus another physique that represents different ideas, you know.
For sure. Now, last thing I want to ask you is, you know, dialing in for the show, for bodybuilding show, is from what I've been hearing, it's very difficult, right? It's like science. You have to dial in to bring the best possible package to the stage. What do you think is the best physique you ever brought? Do you remember the show in the year where you felt like that was your peak?
Best physique I've ever brought. I don't know. I have to like sit down and probably look at it. You know, you could very easily think in your mind one thing and then realize, man, I hadn't really thought about that. And how often has it been that you could probably sit down with a scrapbook, you're cleaning your house, you know, you're cleaning out that closet, you take out the box. What is it? Oh, wow, these are the photos from, oh, wow. And you just start finding yourself going through page after page. And, oh, remember this? I remember when this photo was taken. This was, oh, whoa, this right here. This was, I don't know. I think that I'd probably need to, you know, probably look at that. I think every show that you try to do, every show that you approached, you wanted to approach it with, you know, the utmost of seriousness and focus. You know, whether you hit your mark better at one show or another, I think, you know, can be left up to question. And I think there are times when, you know, I mean, you know, this was, oh man, yeah, I played 7th there. Yeah, this was, whoa, I remember, got up that morning, looked in the mirror and was like, we are in trouble. You know, but yeah, so I really don't know how to answer that. I think it would require to very honestly, you know, look at some things in order to even jog my memory to say. I think a lot of times that stuff becomes, you know, it's one thing too. There was a time when guys competed and, you know, you literally had to do like 50, 60, 70 shows before you really even were able to come into a place where you could say that you feel your own, you know how to connect with things, and you're really familiar with the process of preparing, you know, when to cut the water, how to cut the water, if you can cut the water at all, you know, a lot of trial and error, you know, by yourself, then with a coach, by yourself again, and, you know, and a whole lot of other, you know, just trial and error moments in between. I don't know. I think that's an interesting question. I don't really have an answer for that.
Okay, fair enough, man. Well, Kai, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's always great talking to you, man. So we're going to take this interview, we're going to cut it up into parts based on the subject, and we're going to start putting it out as early as probably end of this week.
That's what's up.
Thank you so much, Kai. And then, you know, we'll connect regarding the film. I know that they're finalizing just the casting, basically. And then we're going to go from there.
Good news. I'm excited, Vlad. That's what's up, man.
Thank you so much, Kai. I appreciate your time, man. We took longer than expected, but I really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Vlad. I appreciate you.